I think that patriarchal form or that religious form of sex, all that shame and stuff that we carry forward really hinders what we're able to experience in the, not only for women, but for men too, because we can step into this sacredness with sex that really is about bonding with the individual. It's about taking time with an individual. It's about getting to know the person that you're with.
All right. Welcome to the AlignUs podcast. I'm your host, Dr. Nikhil Sharma, and I'm so grateful to have you guys here with us today. Today we have a really incredible topic we're going to be delving into, sexual energy, which is our life force energy, and relationships. Joining me today, as always, is my co-host, my man, my soul brother, and growth and mindset expert, Kevin Drummond. What's up, brother?
I love the intro.
Yeah. I'm saying it's just coming naturally from my heart,
Energy,
So,
man, it's the energy.
And today we are very, very grateful to have with us our guest, Liz Peterson, who is an intuitive energy healer and author of 2 books, Sex Magic and Mom Died Last Night, and the host of the Raise the Vibe with Liz podcast. Welcome, Liz. So grateful to have you here with us today and discussing this awesome topic.
Hi, Dr. Nick. Hi, Kevin. Such a pleasure to be with you both today. I'm really excited to be talking about my new book, Sex Magic, How to Use Sexual Energy to Manifest Your Dreams. Looking forward to our conversation.
Yeah. I mean, I until recently, I never really understood that sexual energy is really our life force energy. It's what really, it drives us every single day to do things that we're, meant to be doing. But I never just tied that into, sex, because I just thought like sex is sex. And then we have a different energy that when we're building something. And so when I'm realizing it's all one connected life force energy, things started making a lot more sense to me. And I feel like growing up, a part of me, well, I think a lot of people probably resonate with this, is that we're not really taught how to be intimate. We're not taught how to share our emotions. I came from a South Asian background where emotions were never really discussed in the house. We never even said, I love you to each other. And I don't think, it's not that obviously they love me and they showed me their love the way that they would show me their love. But again, it wasn't, hey, Nikhil, I love you, or Mom, I love you. It wasn't commonly said in the household. So right then and there, there's like a detachment from like emotional, like, intelligence and sex and all. You're just kind of discombobulated. There's no, I had emotional immaturity, I would say. And so how did that progress for me in life? I was, working on becoming a physician, but at the same time, becoming an adult, I'm getting into relationships. And then the relationships that I'm getting into, I would say within maybe the first day or a couple of days of meeting them, we're sleeping together. And, this is occurring for me because, again, I was seeking that love from my parents, and they weren't reciprocating that love in the way that I needed it to happen. So my fight or flight system kicked in and was like, okay, I need like love or something to comfort me, better than what I'm being comforted right now. And so I started seeking that comfort in relationships, and, through sex. And, I was like, all right, well, this is amazing. This feels so good. But then, what happens is that the sex is really good for maybe a couple weeks. Before you know it, you're realizing you're in this relationship all of a sudden, right? Because you just, it just kind of sucks you in, like that energy, that initial burst of energy, I would say, like pulls you into that individual, and you're like, all right, this is awesome. Cool. We seem to be like alike. There seems to be a good attraction here for sure. So why not? Like, we're spending all these days together because the sexual energy is so good.
Yeah.
I never had that time to like realize or spend with them, like getting to know who they really are. I don't know, Kevin, you're laughing like,
because it makes so much sense. I never thought about it like this until now. Like even at the beginning, you were saying life force energy and sexual energy. I was there, but then you brought it together, and I was like, oh my gosh, it clicked, like the light bulb went off, because you just said it, like this energy is so good, but then you're giving you're giving credit to this 2-3 day or maybe even weeks relationship that you have, but really it's your that heightened state, that heightened life force energy, and that's when I just had like the fireworks just like, oh my gosh, it's me. It's not the relationship or whatever you want to call it, the fling. It's actually a heightened state that was here all along, but it got brought about by the sex. I mean, I'm just wow. I'm mind blown right now. I'm ready. I want to hear all the knowledge about sex energy, because that was a huge light bulb just now.
So yeah, so it's interesting. Then all of a sudden, your energy starts getting sucked into this relationship that you have now absorbed. You are not really aware of what traumas that you're also absorbing when you enter like a sexual relationship with another individual, because I haven't spent the time to really get to know that individual. But now there's a bond there, right? And
Oh,
so
now.
so part of my bond is also now having to take on that person's energy,
Yep.
And I'm not the type of person that can just cut people off cold turkey. I once I have an experience with somebody, I tend to, want to continue that experience, or I feel bad just stopping with them. And there's something about them that has got me intrigued. So again, that has a lot to do with the lack of healing that I'd done and codependency issues and lack of emotional awareness. So then I'm in that relationship too long. I'm trying to work on my career, but at the same time, I'm like, oh, this makes sense. Society is also telling me that I need to be in a relationship now. I'm 28 years old. So yeah, it's good. But inside, and I'm wondering if a lot of viewers or listeners are also feel this way, inside, you know that something isn't right, right? There's that voice inside you telling you, Nick, this isn't the one. This isn't the one. But then you still stay stuck, right? Like, stay stuck, and it's just, I'm getting drained. My life force energy, which is my sexual energy, right? All this put it together into one, is now being drained. And so I am now thinking about, how do I get out of this energy? My energy is stuck, And so it's like I've already like now thinking about like the next relationship, and like, because there's a crack in the foundation. There was never really a foundation there. It was from the sacral chakra, from people that understand. It wasn't coming from our heads. We had no deep connection. It was all superficial. It's all attraction. But from that attraction, somehow a bond was formed. And then you get addicted to that emotional toxic bond. And it's like this negative cycle that keeps draining and draining your energy and draining your energy. But it's like, how do you break through, And so, Liz, I know you're laughing, and this is because we're actually having some epiphanies right now as we're having this conversation.
He just gave me my whole life story. That was literally my whole life story.
That was me from 18 to 40. All right, one relationship to the other, draining, this, that.
Yeah.
Free.
Oh my gosh, that beloved new relationship energy, that sexual energy that kicks everybody off because we start dating somebody and then we follow our hormones and we're making love and we're having sex with these people and we're supercharged with our sexual energy, and we end up in these little mini marriages, basically, in relationships with people that we don't know, exactly like you were saying, Dr. Nick, because we weren't taught as kids. We're taught like in school, right? If we look at sex education, they don't talk about relationships. They don't talk about emotional maturity. They're talking about abstinence and, the biological thing that happens during sex and what our genitalia is, but that's pretty much it. It doesn't talk about anything else. Unfortunately, our society was based on Puritan ideals. So it's very shame-based sex. So it's not talked about in the family. Sometimes you have a family that talks about it too much and it becomes uncomfortable. You have a family that talks about it not at all. So then you know nothing about sex and relationship, and you're going forth and just stumbling into relationship after relationship, not really knowing, what to do or how to function, and we end up in these little relationships that last too long, and we don't have that foundation that you were talking about, which is so important. If we like step into relationship and really get to know a person before we energetically bond with the person, because when we have sex with somebody, we are energetically bonding with them. We're like having a literal energetic cord to that person for the rest of our lives. So who do we want to bond with, and who do we want to create these relationships with? Because we're energetically weaving into a person. And that's why, like, when there's breakups, it's so long and so hard, because we have to literally untangle our energy from the other person, and especially our energetic energy. And then we have a connection. I'm an energetic healer. I've had gifts since I was younger. When I've been with them, I have a connection that I actually have to keep an eye on and cut those cords repeatedly, because I can telepathically still pick up on these people when they're thinking about me, and, having to filter out energy constantly. So that's not taken into consideration either, is that we have that energetic bond that continues, and we still carry that karma with them.
Yeah, I mean, I'm just processing all the things you're saying, especially when you say that we have these cords with these other individuals, and it's so true, because I can still think about some of the girls that I've slept with and had a relationship with, despite there being some time apart and not having any kind of connection. If there is just even a little bit of a conversation, I can feel it. Like there's like this, there's a little bit of that nostalgia. You start reminiscing about some of the great sex that you had, and it's there. You have to be very mindful of that, because again, there's a reason why you've stopped things with that individual, and you have to be thinking with your head and not so much more with your sacral plexus, and trying to please that all the time, because again, that alone, that exchange with an individual that is not aligned with your higher purpose or your higher self is going to drag you back down to where you don't want to be, especially if you left that situation and realizing it was very toxic, and you're feeling so much better about yourself. It's funny how when you start feeling so good about yourself, these other energies start like finding their way back to you, because you have this light and this glow about you, and that light and glow attracts some of that darkness. The other people want to feed off of that energy. It's so true, right? Like they're just like, yo, I miss you, like let's remember the great times that we had. And I'm sure people are thinking about some of those experiences that they've gone through, where they have felt so good being away from a relationship, but then there have been those times where they've fallen back into patterns that they're not really proud of, but because of that sexual energy that is not been healed and appropriately channeled, that's when that can happen. Is that what your experience has kind of been like?
Yeah, well said, Dr. Nick, because, our energetic system, our chakra system, as you were pointing out earlier, you have your first chakra, which is about safety and survival and, living life plugged into the planet. Then you get to the second chakra, and it's sex and sexuality and sensuality and creative force. And our life force, our Kundalini life force that lives in this region of our body, that first and second chakra in our pelvis, is our creator energy. Look at women. They are creator beings. A man, we've got that divine masculine, we've got the divine feminine. They come together in synergy to create together in life. And we can use that life force energy to create our life. So why not create the life as we're being ecstatic and as we're lit up, because our sexual energy lights us up. And that's why, somebody from the past might want to come back, but we have to talk to ourselves, have these conversations with ourselves. What do I want to create for myself moving forward? Do I want the old relationships that I had in the past, or do I want to elevate my relationships in the future and come at relationships in a different way? How about getting a foundation? How about knowing the person? How about knowing if they share the same ideals as me, or they want the same thing in life, or the same desires in life? Are they at the same emotional maturity level as me? Do they want to create a sacred sexuality practice instead of it just being about lust and really patriarchal sex, as I like to call it, which is get in there, get turned on, kiss here, kiss there, touch there, and
Yeah.
then go for the orgasm.
That's right.
It's very like, I'm sorry to
Yeah.
say it,
Go
Dr.
for the orgasm.
but male driven sex. Where if you look at female driven sex,
For sure.
females want it slow, take your time. It takes us so much longer to get aroused. With men, it's much quicker. With women, 20 plus minutes. And the more open a woman is sexually, and sensually, if you take your time and slowly open her body, she will actually suck you in because it's a natural mechanism in the body, with that circle nerve that's connected at
True.
the pelvis, to actually pull
True.
penetration into the body for procreation, but also for pleasure. The more open a woman is, the more pleasure she can feel, then the more pleasure you guys get to feel too in that elongated, sacred sexual experience instead of, just goal oriented, going for the orgasm.
That's right. And I was just thinking about, the thing is about this, experience that you're supposed to have, sexually and with your life force energy. The issue I had growing up was that society or my parents or somebody would be telling me what kind of experiences I should be having, like how sex should be, what kind of person should I become, what job should I be having. Everything that has been like initially told to me, or the initial way I was living was told to me. We're conditioned at a very young age, by external forces to do things a certain way because that's the way it's been done for so many years. That's the way we did it. That's what a real man does. That's how you live life. And again, it becomes so subconsciously embedded in your system that you don't even recognize you're doing these patterns that aren't fully aligned with necessarily what's making you happy. Because I started realizing that, me being a really emotional individual, I prefer to have really intimate experiences with my friends, but especially with my relationships, that I need to have some, foreplay, or I need to have a more of a connection really with the person's brain. But I never took the time to want to figure out what is it that I truly want. That's the most important thing, is understanding, is what you're doing truly aligned with who you are, or is what you're trying to do and create something that was externally driven, right? I think
Yeah.
that is the biggest epiphany that I, right? Like, was just figuring that part out, because you'll know if something is truly aligned for you because that inner voice tells you. But then it's crazy how external voices can quickly cover up what your inner voice is telling you and be like, oh yeah, that's just normal in relationships, that's just how it goes, you don't have to have sex all the time. No, yeah, you'll go months without it. And it's and those thoughts, then you're like, oh, so this is really normal, we're not really supposed to be having sex all the time because we're married. And I can't like tell you how many times I get calls from friends that I know, and they're like, Nick, can I get some Viagra? Can I get some Cialis? And I'm like, what? Like, you're only like 30 some years old, you know what I mean? Like, it doesn't make sense to me that you need this. Did you get your testosterone levels checked? Because that would be one way to understand if you really need something like that. And if that was the case, you would need testosterone. You wouldn't really necessarily need Viagra. What's really happening is that there's a lack of intimacy that is going on between you and your partner. And now, since you're not really open to communicate what it is that you need, there's issues that are occurring. And that issues is a complete lack of intimacy between each other.
God, I'm so happy that you pointed that out, Dr. Nick, because I had the same process growing up. Like, I had to figure out, like, what is this? What is this relationship? What is this sex? I have what my parents are telling me, what my friends are telling me, what school's telling me, what society's telling me. And I'm trying to live up to all these things, but it's not matching up inside of myself. So I went on this inward journey and I got like the energetic aspect from doing energy work and going and getting trained in that. Then I went and did some sexual healing work post a 20-year marriage and really reclaimed my sex and sexuality, which was so powerful. But going through that arc of like, okay, like there has to be more to this sex than I was experiencing in my 20s. And I was on this like search and searching for, what I thought this ideal sex would be. And I had great sex, in my 20s and great sex in my marriage. But the sex I'm having now is next level because it gets into the intimacy. And I think that patriarchal form or that religious form of sex, all that shame and stuff that we carry forward really hinders what we're able to experience in the, not only for women but for men too. It's been a big injustice to humankind across the board, because we can step into this sacredness with sex that really is about bonding with the individual. It's about taking time with an individual. It's about getting to know the person that you're with. It's about sourcing pleasure and not having, you have the orgasm as part of it, as I talk about in my sex magic book, because it's using orgasm as a manifestation force, but seeking pleasure in life. And when we're seeking pleasure and gaining intimacy in our relationship, then that pleasure starts to trickle into our whole entire lives. The food that we eat tastes much, much better. We're seeking out better things for our body and our life. We're seeking out better relationships in our life. We're leaving toxicity behind because our energetic system, our physical bodies, mental and spiritual, starts desiring more out of life and reaching for more and kind of like leaving that toxicity in the past.
So I couldn't agree more that when you start looking at the intimacy in your relationship as well as your ability to be vulnerable in your relationship, I, for one, uh, and that's why I was laughing at the beginning of this, is because Nick, your description was literally me in every single what I called at the time relationship. Now I knew it wasn't a relationship, but I went through those same motions, and what I realized that there was no intimacy in any of my relationships. It was a lot of the patriarchal sex, a lot of ego sex. I sometimes measured my worth on how many women I was sleeping with at the time, and what were the quality of those women, like were they a 10, were they a 9, and if I had a bunch of 9s, well, that said a lot about me. So it was a lot of ego, but once I realized that there was no actual like substance to those relationships, I started to explore like why, and that's when I started seeing like the inner child woundings and whatnot. But once that intimacy began to be focused on, it was a game changer. And so, like Nick said, you're calling about Cialis and Viagra, and what you should be calling for is just a conversation with your significant other about why is it that we can't just be open and honest about everything and be vulnerable with each other and talk about the things that we want and talk about the things that we like and desire. Like, do you want it rough? Do I not like it rough? Are there things that you imagine like in your head that would just turn you on immediately? Or have you kind of just been kind of scared because you don't want me to take it the wrong way because of issues I may have had in the past with like, abusive boyfriends? Like there's all kinds of conversations that could be had to make both people feel comfortable and open to have this amazing sexual experience. But without that intimacy, that does not happen like at all.
Yeah, well said. And that's something that I have also like gotten into more is and trying to tell people and guide people is that you need to tell your significant other what it is that you like. Like just because, it's almost like people like put their wife in like one or husband like one category. Like that's my wife, okay? Like she has to do this and like she has to be a certain way. There's no way I can get those like dirty thoughts of mine like, on with her. I need to find that somewhere else. And that's where things start going wrong, obviously, in marriages. And that's why there's so much infidelity that occurs, is because of that lack of infidelity, that predisposed thought that your wife is like your wife. Like you don't do those kind of things with your wife, right? And that is where wrong. Like, you need to be open, honest. Like, hey, you know what? I really wish, we need to be having like sex, like, it'd be nice to have it like every single day. But in order for that to happen, there needs to be some intimacy and flow. And I really like it when you do this with me, or I really like role play, and let's do these things. Because if you're not doing that, then something with your energy is going to be off. That life force energy will shift direction to somewhere else, because it needs a place to be able to let free and be creative, right? Like, it needs to be creative. And if it's not being creative and intimate with the person that you love and that you're with, it's going to find its way to somewhere else. So it's important for people to understand you can't trick yourself. You can't lie to yourself. It will eventually show up. And so, what I've had to do, and just speaking from my own personal experience, from somebody who literally has been with a girl from 18 all the way to 40, numerous different girls, numerous different sexual relationships, I was like, I need to just, put a break to this right now. And so I stopped dating. I haven't dated anybody in a year and a half. So that means like no sex in a year and a half, which is wild to me, just thinking about that. But
Powerful.
but yes, and here's where it got really powerful, is that in that time period, I started figuring out what it is that I want. Who is Nikhil? What are my values? What is it that I'm trying to achieve in this life? What is my soul's blueprint telling me? So all that energy that I was expunging in all these different locations and all these different women, I called all that energy back into myself. So now I have this ball of, beautiful energy in my sacrum, right? It's there. And then I was like, I need to do the work. So I need to start healing my inner child wounds, right? And so that's like your solar plexus. You start, healing those wounds. And what does that open up? Your heart chakra, right? Like, now my heart is like open. Like, I'm much more in a healed version of myself. I'm now being able to feel those emotions that I had suppressed for a long time. And then now it makes your way up to your throat, and I'm able to verbalize, hey, this is what I really want. These are the emotions that I'm feeling. This is the kind of stuff that I would like to be doing. And that gets me all the way to my crown chakra and being like, all right, cerebrally, this is the kind of individual I want to be able to be with. And it shouldn't be that we're codependent, but I want to be my independent self. They should be their independent selves. And when we meet at this chakra level, we're going to co-create together and become this like power couple, where we're both independent creators, but our co-creation is now going to take us to that next level. And so in this growth process, and in this part of time that I've been celibate and on my own, I've been using that energy to create AlignUs. And AlignUs is the company that, I've started, where we're going to make it fun, easy, and rewarding for people to be able to donate. We're going to create a positive social media platform. And so this is something that my soul's blueprint is telling me to do. And I'm able to have now created this at a much faster pace than I could have ever done before, because all the energy is now within me and I am creating. And so once this like launches in along the path of the journey of AlignUs, it's going to attract the love of my life. It's going to attract that intimate partner, because I have now created this abundance. I've created something that my soul is telling me to create. And that energy will magnetize the person that I want to be with and spend the rest of my life with and be totally intimate with, because my heart chakra is open and there's abundance of love and intimacy that is going around. So, for those out there,
Bro,
Nailed
you know what I
it.
mean? Like that one,
Nailed it.
you know what I mean? Like, boom. So, yeah, if you're looking for something that how you can maybe go about this process, I can just speak from my experience of what that's done and how it's building. Because I know that partner part is coming, because I'm building something that's coming from my life force energy that's totally aligned with who I am and what I'm trying to accomplish.
I saw
Yes.
you doing the
I
fingers,
love
Liz. I'm all about it.
everything you just said. That was amazing. And such a great example about how this works. And you were doing it naturally, Dr. Nick, by discovering yourself, and you're pointing out the chakras. And I love that you pointed out the fifth chakra too, and that you were able to speak like what you want, because our second chakra is literally attached to our second chakra. They're both creative chakras. Without one, you really can't have the other. So getting to know yourself and finding your voice, then you can voice what you want in life. You can voice your creations in life. You can talk to your partner. I mean, there's so many relationships where people aren't talking to each other. People show up to work with me, and one of my biggest recommendations is start having conversations with each other. Start having conversations with your partner. And everybody's so scared because they don't want to lose their partner. They're hung up in their childhood wounds. As you were saying, you healed your inner child. That's part of it too. We have to recognize these wounds that we have that are keeping us in fear, that are holding us back from speaking our truth. And until we can speak our truth, we're not really being able to open ourselves up as sexually as we possibly can, because we're stuck in other areas. And to do sex magic, you want all of these areas open and flowing. And if your hara, your, Sushumna is in line, then you are in alignment with your path and purpose. So you want to be open, you want to be aligned, you want to be able to have these conversations. I recommend to my clients, like, start with a self-pleasure practice. You're on your own, Dr. Nick. I applaud you for that. I think it's so important for people to spend some time alone, because when you get empowered and okay with being alone, you won't settle. You don't settle for anything, because you find the love for yourself. You know what you want. The type of thing that you want to attract in your life, what you want to magnetize in your life. You won't settle for anything less, because you're okay with being alone. It's like when you're not okay with being alone, that you're always feeling an empty space. So just that practice of finding time to be alone, being okay with being alone, finding that empowerment with being alone, and then exploring yourself, having that self-pleasure practice and finding out, how do I like to be touched? I tell, some of my clients, set up a sensual area for yourself. Have a flower or a bouquet of flowers, light a candle, put on some romantic music, grab some massage oil, just massage your body. Start there. Don't go straight to your genitals. Spend a little time with yourself. What do I like? Do I like soft touch? Do I like hard touch? something firmer and containing, and then start to explore. And, women especially, and, I'm not leaving men out. There's a lot that men can explore about their lingam too, their cock. But explore, take your time.
I was like, what is
Don't
the
rush.
I know.
Don't rush. Get to know yourself.
I wasn't sure what that word was.
Yep.
What was that word again?
No, lingam is your cock, penis, and
Lingam.
yoni is the vagina or vulva. Because in society, we talk about vagina, but vagina is only the vaginal canal. The vulva only covers the outside. But if you use the word yoni, it encompasses the whole entire genitalia of a woman. Yeah. Yeah, and it's spending time with the yoni, spending time with the lingam, getting to know yourself. Then you can speak to your partner when you decide to have a partner. This is what I like. What do you like? I like to be touched this way. How do you like to be touched? Can we try this? And I think, like you were talking about, the energy going elsewhere when you're not able to have these conversations, or you put your wife up on a pedestal. Oh, I can't talk dirty to her. Then your energy is moving out. Oh, where can I do these things, in my life? And then you start seeking out, outsourcing the pleasure. But it's way better if you in-source the pleasure, source it from yourself, and share it with your partner if you're partnered.
Yeah, again, we make sex to be some taboo when it should be a natural part of our life. It's a natural, beautiful thing that occurs between two individuals, and so it's getting over that mentality of, hey, I have to be one way with one person, another way with another person. No, just, once you understand who you are, you need to be who you are with, just if you can be who you are with that one person. It doesn't have to be like, you're having to need multiple relationships and polyamory, unless of course, that is something that you have discussed with yourself and more importantly, with the partners that you're with, which oftentimes, again, does not happen. It's these, again, we don't really express it. We just start doing it, like, and so people, give me these excuses. Oh, we have kids. I'm tired at nighttime, all this stuff. But what you're not understanding is that, your kids actually pick up on the vibration that you're on. So if you and your wife are not having a good like sexual energy and chemistry, I promise you, your kids are gonna know that. I mean, I'm just thinking about like my parents' like energy. I don't know what their sexual life was, but I can't imagine it being so great. But but I do look at like when I went to some of my friends' houses as a young kid, and I would see the way that like the husband and wife would interact there. It was completely different, and you can tell that there was such a strong, intense, intimate connection that I wasn't seeing at home. So if you think that you're trying to trick your kids and trying to make everything okay, I promise you that's not happening. In fact, they're gonna start looking at you guys as a way of not wanting to have a marriage or a relationship. And that will start building up resentment in your kids as they grow up. So you can't lie to yourself. You can't trick yourself into being in a situation that you're not really in. You just have to be authentic. You need to openly communicate what it is that you want and what it is that needs to be changed, and do it. And if it's not something that you feel it can be fixed, and you have to move on. And I know it's easier said than done, but just understand, if you're not in your best energy, if you're not in your full aligned life force energy, it's going to affect all those that are around you and be very detrimental to those around you.
Well said. And have some integrity. Have some integrity to have the conversations with your partner. If you're feeling like you're not getting your needs met, talk to your partner about getting your needs met. Wrangle those childhood wounds of fear of loss and rejection and abandonment, and be brave enough to talk to your partner about the hard stuff. Be brave enough to have the hard conversations. Be brave enough to have the conversations that might break up the marriage or the relationship, because those are the conversations that we need to be having. Because if you don't, then it becomes toxic. There's stuff going on the side. I myself, my marriage ended in a toxic way. There was betrayal going on because he couldn't come to me and just have a conversation about how he was feeling. And if he had come to me and had that conversation about how he was feeling, fine. I loved him enough to want him to be happy. And if that happiness wasn't with me, then by all means, please go and be happy. And then allow me to go and create my new happy life. It doesn't have to be toxic. And I think a lot of times, people aren't getting their needs met, so they are turning to others to satisfy those needs, or they're not having sex in their marriage, so they turn to somebody else to have sex. I think we need to have these conversations so there's not the betrayal going on. Although betrayal can also come from insecurities and, wanting, that rise that comes out of the cheat, which is a whole other conversation. But be brave enough to have the conversations, so you're living a life of integrity, and then you're able to bring, and manifest things to your life that you desire. Because when you have these things in your life, they actually create blocks. And if you have blocks in your life, then you have blocks to your manifestation potential. And you can't create the life you want if you have blocks.
Exactly. Well said. So if you're not getting sexually pleasured and you're not feeling satisfied, it is going to block you. It's going to cause you to, feel a little bit shut down, and then that's going to cause your brain to, do things that it's not aligned for your highest purpose. It's going to not allow you to be creating at the level it should be creating, because in the back of your mind, you're thinking how garbage the sex that you're having is right now, or how unsatisfied you are. That's sitting in the back of your mind. Like it does. Like I remember being in these relationships and the sex wasn't great, yet I was in them. And so even though I was trying to push that to the back of my brain, like it's going to be fine, you can't really push that to the back of your brain. It's got to be something that's you're addressing, that needs to be something that's really pleasurable for you. And why wouldn't you want it to be pleasurable for you? You know what I mean? So whatever that's going to take, that means either having an honest conversation and trying to see if we can improve things, or having that honest conversation despite how tough it is, and maybe, hey, we need to move on from this relationship. You think that because you're the only one that feeling that way, you're not. Because if you're feeling like the sex isn't satisfying, I promise you, your partner's thinking the same thing. Because when you are intertwined in doing that, the energy is off. And so it's being felt by both individuals. You yourself know when the sex is extremely good and extremely satisfying. So if you feel like the sex isn't good, the other person is also thinking the same exact thing. So have that honest conversation to yourself about it. Lead with integrity. You have this one life to live. It's not long. You might as well make it as enjoyable and as pleasurable as possible. And that's aligned with who you are and the foundation that you're trying to grow. And so, Liz, thank you so much for today's amazing conversation. I mean, truly, we're having like breakthroughs on this talk, right now. It's been such a pleasure to have this with you. And for those that are interested in learning more about like sex magic, we're going to leave descriptions for how you can get a copy of Liz's book. And if you want to get her services, we'll also have a link for you below so that you can meet with her. And yeah, amazing. So thank you guys. Thank you for all that are listening. And until next time, peace.